Hello, family. Pastor George here. Welcome to SET-4-LIFE. We just did an episode called Help is on the Way, and we're showing you how to qualify for homes. And guess what? Here's part 2. And we have our co-hosts back, Dannete Wilkerson, our real estate guru, and Crystal Mozell. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to part 2 of Help is on the Way, How to Buy a House with SET-4-LIFE. I am Crystal Mozell, and I am the Stewardship Coordinator here at Faithful Central Bible Church. And I have my right hand, my left hand, all my hands and feet girl with me, Dannete Wilkerson, who is our real estate guru, who can tell you from A to Z what to do to buy a house. So, Dannete, we left off with don't co-sign. Mm-hmm. Stop carrying folks on your back. Is there anything else that we need to know about what is going to count against us as far as debt is concerned when it comes to us purchasing a home?
Well, since I'm the real estate guru, y'all tune into part 1 because the budgeting guru, taxes and all that actually covered a lot of these topics. So if you missed the information about what we're about to delve into, make sure you hit that first part, because the question you had asked was, should, if I co-sign for my family, which, that's a big no-no. I'm not into the co-signing thing. Or if I borrow some money from my mom, will they count that against me? Again, those items that will be counted against you, if that's a proper way to look at it, will be anything that you use your Social Security for. Okay. One of the things that people don't really think about, though, are those student loans that they're not paying back. I'm not sure if we did a student loan show or not, but if you did, watch that one. If not, this is the student loan guru. If everybody's a guru, this one is the guru of all of those things. But the student loans are really important for people to understand, because some people think that because they're in deferment, they don't count against them. Mm-hmm. And actually they didn't at one point. They would use, if you were in deferment or you weren't making a payment because you're a student, a professional student, is what we call those.
Yeah, we have some of them.
Yes, ma'am. And so there was a time when they didn't count that debt against you. Now, let's say you have $100,000 in student loan debt because you went on and got your master's or what have you, or you haven't been paying. Some people have undergrad degrees at 100 because they haven't been paying, and the interest rate is accruing. And so those are negative amortization loans. If you're not paying, that's going backwards, right? But those now count against you, and the lender will take 1% of whatever your total balance is and put that with your minimum monthly payments that you have to make payments on. So you have your car note, which people are buying $700 a month car notes. I see some $1,000 payments. I'm like, what are you driving?
Jesus.
And can I get a ride, right? But, so you have $1,000 in car note, you have $1,000 on student loans. That's $2,000 right there that they're using in that ratio that I talked about. Mm-hmm. So if you were to get a mortgage of, let's say, $3,000, I'm going to use that as an average here in California, because if a property is $500,000 or $600,000, you're going to pay about $3,000, sometimes even $4,000, based on where you're going, because interest. Not only interest, but the taxes in California is 1.25%. So there's all of these things that I won't get into real specifics about today. That's why you're here. So when they come in, we can really dig into that and give you real details on it. But those numbers get affected by how much you have obligated that shows up on your credit report.
Okay.
And again, food
don't show up on
your credit report. So if you want to eat, I recommend you go through the process that you talked about, which is to get out of debt first.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's that part.
Well, Now, just digging a little deeper, we know what it takes. We know we need to have our budget together. We know roughly the percentages of what it is that we need to have allocated to specific areas. What is it about? Something just came on the news, not too long ago,
Okay.
I'll say, about a down payment assistance. I hear this all the time. Oh, you don't have to have any money down to buy a house. You don't have to come up with anything to buy a house. And I look at this and they say it and I'm thinking, why isn't somebody getting them for false advertisement? Why isn't somebody going after people? Because they will come and sit down in my face and tell me, oh, well, this program I don't have to have any money down. Let me tell you guys one thing. You don't know nothing else, and I'm not the guru, but anything you get when it comes to purchasing something, if somebody don't give it to you outright, you're coming up with something. But go ahead, Dannete. Talk about those programs.
Oh, well, that goes back to don't sell grandma's house. If you inherit a house, you do get a house with no money down and no closing costs. But those programs are the marketing is misleading. I won't say deceiving, but there are programs in certain areas where they will give you the down payment and the closing costs. They're rare. But they do happen. And I promise you, I know someone who bought in Playa Vista. There was a time where they were utilizing this no money down, no closing cost process for, how do you use the term? Allocating a certain demographic to be able to purchase in a higher bracket environment because they had to.
Are you trying to be too politically correct?
I have to. I have a license. So
Well, I'm going to say it then, since you can't say it. If they are seeking people of color or minorities in a specific area to purchase, this was the type of program.
There it is. It was great. So they were able to buy in that area because they didn't, have the actual qualifying numbers to get in, and they do that on certain developments, so that they, low income housing is what it's called for various people, and but what happens?
Hold on one second.
Yeah,
Let me
got
pause
me.
you for a second.
Sure.
I want you guys to understand. She said Playa Vista. If you're not familiar with California or Los Angeles County area, Playa Vista is they call it Silicon Beach. Most people are familiar with Silicon Valley, right? They're now calling this Silicon Beach. So it is a very upper echelon, close to the water, luxury units that they have over there. Yeah, the community at large.
Yeah. It is what it is, but so those kind of programs do exist. It's just hard to get into those. Now, mind you, those are most often allocated for teachers and firefighters and police officers and those kinds of nurses. They do that, military. And the reason they do that is because they do that in certain areas. So that was an upper echelon area. They also might do that in an area such as Compton or Watts or any of those areas where they're doing it used to be called the Teacher Next Door program. Do you remember hearing that?
I do.
So that was years ago, but they still have programs similar to that where those individuals that work in those capacities can buy for a lower value in a higher area or a lower area because they want people of prestige to live there.
Okay.
Right? Because
I've known them as hero programs. That's
hero
what I've
programs
heard.
is another term. And the reason they do that is because if you live next door to a teacher or a fireman or a police officer, traditionally you would think that you feel more safe or you feel like, oh, okay, so professionals live here, so this must not be that bad of an area. And you'll see it now where you have other individuals moving into areas that were less desirable before. Those are, that's what rejuvenates an area and turns it from a less desirable area to a desirable area.
Okay.
So there are programs that give incentive to do that by giving you zero down payment, zero closing costs. So usually you have some criteria.
So they exist. That's what you're telling me, but they're rare.
They're very rare and they're hard to find.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, with those programs, there's usually usually when you read any fine print, get in there, there's a stipulation that goes with that. So it will say you have to live in this home for 5 years, 10 years, sometimes 20 years. So you get in there and then there's a drive-by shooting and your house gets broken into, you're stuck. You're stuck in the home because you have this qualifier that says you can't move or you can't sell. If you sell, that money that they gave you traditionally is owed back, right? If you don't stay that duration. So let's say you sell your house in 9 years and you were 1 year shy of that. And let's say you gained all this equity. They're just going to take that down payment back, which is fine. I mean, maybe it's $20,000. Well, not in California, but let's say it's $60,000 and you have gained $400,000 in equity, you're not going to miss the 60.
Yeah.
So that is an incentive because you bought it with no money down, no closing costs. You gained this amount of equity. You owe this amount of money for them helping you get into the property. So now, okay, take it. I get $350 back. I'm good, and I can take that money and use it to buy another home. So it's really not free money. You understand? It's borrowed money. You're actually borrowing the down payment and the closing costs. Veterans have a similar program. They have zero down, zero closing costs, but it's not free to the seller. It's the seller that's covering the down payment. So technically you're rewarding the veteran. You're saying, oh, thank you for your service in our country. And because you served in our country, I'm going to pay your closing costs. Well, if you're getting $400,000 in equity and they need $60,000, you give them the $60,000, you're just very generous. But somebody's coughing up the cash. Okay,
That's what it amounts to.
It's not free.
It's not essentially free. It's coming from somewhere.
Correct.
And understood. That's corporate America. They're going to make sure they get theirs.
Now, there's
somewhere.
Now, there's another way to get in. So remember the 2008 debacle, the whole crash of the market and all that. Everybody was getting into property with no money down. There were closing costs to be had, but sometimes the lender was absorbing those closing costs because they just wanted to close a loan by any means necessary. I think 3-year-olds were buying houses back then.
It seemed
so
like
you got a Social Security card? Let me use them and get a house. And they were just giving loans, doing loans, not even verifying if you really were making this amount of money. I saw people working at McDonald's talking about they made $80,000 a year. You're like, what? They making 80 at McDonald's? How's that happening? Hairdressers made 120, and all these sorts of things. And they were closing these loans like, they were selling hot cakes at IHOP. But they had 80-20 loans. So the 20% down payment was being borrowed. So you just took out a loan that was just 100% financing. And that was what they meant by zero down payment.
Okay.
So you didn't have to come in with any money because you were borrowing 20% from this lender. This lender was giving you 80%, making 100% of a loan. And so you had 2 loans and you were making 2 payments. And that's what it was. One of the loans is a higher interest rate. And they're doing that again. It's back.
Wow.
But they're calling them 90-10s now.
Oh, so it's 90% and 10%.
10% loan, yeah.
Okay. So tell me this for our viewing audience. What is the difference? Because most of us just put it all in one little pile. What's the difference between closing costs and a down payment?
Great question. So the down payment is that, you remember that 20% I just talked about?
Yes.
So if you put 20% down, let's say the house is $100,000, you put $20,000 down, your loan is now $80,000. And the reason I'm using low numbers because I don't like math like that. George could probably do the 500 with the 20% and numbers. Okay, great.
We ain't George.
So 100,000, which I don't know where you can get a house for $100,000, anywhere, maybe in Nantucket or so. But 20,000 down, you have an $80,000 loan. That 20% is what's called a down payment.
Okay.
Now, on that $80,000 loan, there's what's called fees. Fees for the lender, which include escrow, which includes title, which includes notary fees. There's all these fees because lenders don't just do loans for their health. All the paperwork that's being drafted, all of the title that's being researched to make sure that when you buy this house, it didn't belong to Sally Sue, but Mary Sue is selling it to you. But Sally Sue's in Nantucket and Mary Sue's like, oh, I'm gonna sell Sally Sue. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We have to prove that this house belongs to you. So there's a title search that goes with that. That costs money. There's a lot of things about a loan that costs money, and all of the fees that come with the cost of borrowing money is wrapped up into that term, which is called closing costs.
Okay.
Those closing costs also include the realtor and everybody who is looking to be paid when this deal closed, because no money transfers anywhere until the house is sold. So the seller, in fact, is the one paying for the majority of these fees. The borrower has some fees too, but they can only pay a certain percentage, especially first-time buyers. There's a maximum amount of how much a first-time buyer can pay in fees.
Okay.
Same with military. There's a certain maximum amount that they can pay, somewhere around 3%. So if the fees of this whole loan cost 6% and I can only legally pay 3%, where's the other 3 coming from? The seller.
Come from somebody.
The seller, right? Yeah, because the realtor's not paying it.
Yeah.
I'm not paying it. You have to figure that out on your own. Then that's what we mean by saving enough money to be able to cover the closing costs and the down payment. So technically, how much should a person save up if they really want to buy a home? Somewhere around 6% of the purchase price. So if you're buying a $500,000 house and 6% of $500,000
is what you need to
is
have.
what you need to pay for the down payment and closing costs. You can ask the seller if you like, can they cover your closing costs, but they not doing that anymore.
Well, that's what I heard. In this market, that is a rare find if you do. As a matter of fact, I heard there's more cash offers than anything.
Yes.
I just need to find out where the people are getting the money from for the cash, because I need to be in their profession, right?
It's actually, I'm gonna tell you. So
Okay.
in COVID-19, I can't even believe we're out of it. Well, we're not out of it. We're into Amarian and B2K and I don't know. We got all these names. So when COVID happened, people realized that we're having I won't say all people, but some people realized that we're having what affects the economy.
Okay.
I'm going to draw a blank, and you might be able to fill this in. George uses some terminology, and I can't think of it right now, but whatever it is, it's indicators that the market is ebbing and flowing.
The tailwinds and
There you go. Tailwinds and headwinds. There we go.
Yes.
We were doing these seminars every Friday through
Yes.
the entire COVID because George was really training heavily on what this meant. And if you were listening to George in these market updates, which I clearly was, and as a realtor, I'm listening for buzzwords for our clients and myself, because I buy real estate too. But there was a headwind that said the market, we're about to be stagnant, meaning something's about to happen. Remember the markets went
Yes.
down really low and everybody was panicking. George was like, "This is great.
Yes.
We about to buy the chocolate cake," right?
And everything else with it.
He was buying everything. So that when the markets hit bottom as bottom can get in such an economy, George is of the mindset to buy low. So that happens with real estate too, right? So where is the low in the real estate market? That's really hard to gauge. But I tell you what, it was during COVID. It was at the low of the high because it was already going up. But when it hit the low of the high, that was when everybody needed to buy because it shot up after COVID. What people did, where did you get the cash? This is what you were asking. They got the cash by selling their homes.
Okay.
So if I have a property that I bought in 2008, let's say, and it was 150,000 or 200,000. When I said buy Inglewood, properties were what, 180, 200, 225 in Inglewood.
Yeah.
Well, now people are in Inglewood seeing their property value at 400,000 at the low of the high. 2019, they were about 400. Started going up, 400, 410, 450, 455, 475, 580, 590. What? I could get 600,000 from. Boom, I'm selling. Now, where do they have They have $400,000, $500,000 cash. You have to do what with it, tax guru?
You have to get rid of it. You better do a 1030 exchange.
You have to put the money
1031.
back in the house, into a house. Because if I just take that $500,000 or $600,000 and put it in my bank account, Uncle Sam's coming, and he's going to want
coming
his
hard
piece.
and fast.
Yes. So instead of putting it in my bank account and saying, yippee-yi-yay, I'm rich, they put it into another property. So if a property is $600,000 and I have $500, I can make a all cash offer. It sounds all cash, but it really isn't. I might take $100,000 loan, but the majority of my offer is going to be cash. And so cash was king. And it's like, I don't even need inspections. I'll buy your house for $500,000-$600,000. I don't care if it's as long as the shell is here and the bedrooms are inserted and the bathrooms, toilets flushed, I'm good. I don't need. I'll close this escrow in 7 days. I mean, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, people were lined up wrapped around the block to get into an open house. And the reason too was COVID. Only one person can come in here. We were so petrified of getting COVID, right? But that's really where they were getting the cash from. On top of that, the government said, hey, Georgia's not going to like this, but the government said during COVID, during the moratorium, you can take money out of your 401k without a tax penalty.
Yes, they did do that.
So now we have. If I have $500,000 in my 401k and I could take money out without a tax penalty, I'm pulling it. And people were pulling that money. They were pulling the equity out of their retirement.
I'm gonna play George for a minute. He's not here today.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, audience, do not consider taking money out of your 401k, out of your retirement to purchase a home. It is not the wisest idea at all, because you have to consider how are you going to recoup that so that when you decide to retire that you can. So I'm playing George now. Don't do it. You didn't hear us tell you to do it. We said people were doing.
Yeah, no, I'm not recommending it whatsoever. Thank you. No, that's a great point. I wasn't. And again, you know, George and I banter on occasion about this topic because sometimes it's the only place people have to get their money.
Yeah.
And really what you're doing is you're moving it from one investment to another. George just wants you to focus, tunnel vision. This is retirement. Save the money for real estate. That's what the budget is for, right? But sometimes the economy might outpace your saving ability. And so if you're in your 30s and you've accumulated $400,000 on your retirement and you have a good 40 years, I mean, every year they raising the thing. It's just like 82 is going to be the next retirement age. You're like, oh, I hope I live that long, jeez, you know. But
Yes.
I mean, now what is it, 65 or 67 or something like that? 67. I mean, it used to be 62. Then it was 50. Remember, you became a senior at 50. I got my AARP card already, but I'm not retired by any stretch looking to retire or even able.
Yeah.
So if you've accumulated that kind of money and you don't own a home, that's why I said we banter. So when our clients come to the table and they have all of this money in their retirement, but they don't have any real estate, and you know, you've been there, when we converse about a client's holistic portfolio, if I'm I'm always at the table, but if I look at that picture and they don't have real estate, I'm like, what are we doing? We got to diversify, and they need some real estate. So where do they get the money? Well, George is going to say save it. Right?
Yes.
But if they're out and about and we're at the low of the high, and we got to make a money move right now, come on, let the brother pull out 60K. You're not going to miss it. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Who wins? Dannete does.
But
because
that's what
we
I
got to
love
buy.
about it. Yeah, but that's what I love about us, though, is that we all come to the table with our area of expertise to be able to do the best thing for our clients.
Absolutely.
So that's the awesome thing about it. So I have another question for you. So they have what they call a conventional loan, and then they have FHA financing, and I think there's some others that I'm not familiar with out there. Can you explain to us just what those are and the differences between them and who can take advantage of them and who possibly cannot?
Okay, I'll start with FHA because it's just the easiest loan to deal with, and it's probably the most familiar that everybody has heard of. And it really is the loan that first-time buyers use. But other people can use. You don't have to be a first-time buyer to have an FHA loan. What it really entails is whether or not you have enough equity to cover what an FHA loan requires.
Okay.
An FHA loan allows a borrower to come in with 97.5% financing. So you can borrow up to 97.5%, which means you only have to come in with 3.5% down payment. Problem with the FHA loan, when you do that particular loan, is they have what's called mortgage insurance.
Okay.
Mortgage insurance is about almost 1% of the loan value. So think of if the house is 100,000, 1% of that is 1,000. Divide that by 12. That's going to be a monthly payment of whatever it is for the duration of the loan until you reach the 20% down payment. So the equity can stretch up to that 20%. Once you get to that, you can drop mortgage insurance. But nowadays they've changed it. You can't even do that. That's neither here nor there. That's a lot more information than you really need to know. But the difference between that and a conventional loan is that if I put 20% down on a conventional loan, I don't have to go through the parameters of what is required of an FHA loan.
Okay.
FHA financing is like jumping through all kinds of hoops. It's a government-backed loan.
Okay.
So just think of the government. What happens with the government? They have rules and regulations.
Whole bunch of them.
So when you go in to buy a FHA home, the lender, knowing you're using FHA financing, when there's inspections and there's all of these things, they're making sure that the water runs, the electricity is working, the roof is not going to cave in or fall in. There's all these different things that are required of the government to make sure that those backed loans give you the ability to close the deal.
Okay.
If anything's wrong with the house, you cannot get FHA financing. So that's the difference. And it's not even that big of a deal. Some of the conventional financing looks exactly like FHA financing.
Okay.
They have
That was
3.5% loans for conventional. But remember, I just said they're doing 90-10s now and all of that. So you could do a conventional loan on that 90 and probably just borrow the 10. And now you don't have the FHA financing guidelines and rules. But everything about FHA I like because it supports the first-time buyer and the realtor who's trying to make sure that when you buy a house, it's not going to fall down in front of you.
And that was going to be my next question. Why is that a bad thing? Because to me, they're ensuring that I'm walking into something that isn't, that's habitable, is what it amounts to.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing for the buyer.
Okay.
It's just annoying for the seller. Because if I didn't take care of my house and you come in to tell me you need to have GCFI outlets in there, it's like I have to fix that before I can even transfer the house to you. So now I have to spend money to fix the outlets that I never did when I own the home. There's certain things maybe I didn't upkeep the house and the appraiser comes in and says the toilet's not working right, or you don't have the low level flush toilet things, and now you got to go buy that. And it's not very expensive, these things to do. It's just I don't have the money that's in my house. I want to sell it so I can, you know what I mean?
Get that and do that.
Yeah, you have to cover that.
But the same thing an inspector would do, though, is FHA just makes sure that it's done. But an inspector, if you did a conventional loan, they would find out those same things, correct?
Yeah, you're going to use the same inspections. As a realtor, I would recommend you do inspections no matter what. And I know we're running out of time. We have covered everything. But listen, I have 2 or 3 more things that right along the lines of what you're talking about.
Okay.
We have covered how to buy a house. The first part that I pulled out of you, that's the main part. Cash, credit, income, and credit and reserves or savings. The other pieces that you're talking about right now is the minutia of escrow, which escrow can be very stressful. I liken it to, death. It ranks right up there. Death, divorce, and escrow, they're all the same. They're just very stressful. But if you do all the things that you're talking about, that you mentioned in preparing, escrow will be not as complicated. Okay. There's a pre-approval process and an approval process that you want to go through before you buy a home. Okay. Before you even go through that, do what Crystal said. Do all of the stuff. Go see Crystal here at the church or George at his office. To just get ready. The pre-approval process is really now we're just going to dig into all the stuff we talked about with how much debt do you owe? Do you owe? Did you co-sign with Kiki and them? Do you have a $1,000 car note? We're going to find out that part of it all. And then we're going to tell you based on your income, based on your debt, how much house you can afford. And this is what your payment's going to be. Then when you get that number, you come back to Crystal or George and you say, this is how much my mortgage will be. Can I afford this and still be Crystal? Because I still need my hair done, my nails done, and my everything did. So when we plug that number into the overall big picture of the budget, now you have that final number. And now you can go run around looking for a house, and we will not cover that part of the process. That will be another episode relative to the escrow, the appraisal. We'll get into that one day about, what is an escrow, the life of an
Yes.
escrow. Let's do that.
Oh, that would be great. I will look forward to that. But I do want to say this, because when I have people come in, that is one of the biggest things is you definitely, listening audience, watching audience, you definitely want to ensure that you have a pre-approval. Don't get in a realtor, real estate agent's car.
Don't get in mine.
Walking into open houses and stuff, giving folks the
Yeah.
impression that you are going to buy or that you can afford something when you have not, you don't even know how much you can afford.
Right. And
That's the budget. That's what we
the
have
budget.
to do.
It is. And we've learned, realtors have learned to not do that. So you won't.
That won't happen
they
any
won't
longer?
let you do that.
Okay.
We need the little golden ticket.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you for having me though, because this was
It
great.
was a pleasure. We haven't had to do that. We haven't done this in a while,
Yes.
even in person, just talking about things. So thank you so much. Set for Life audience, thank you for joining us for Help is on the Way, How to Buy a Home. And we are finishing up Set for Life today, How to Live Life by Design, Not by Default.